crashing all over the place. Thank you very much. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory.
I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. Woo!
Well, that ain't happening tonight. That's all it is. Alright, no you now tonight. They're done. I have no idea why it's not working, and it really doesn't matter at this moment. That's alright.
Alright.
As long as I get like Facebook and YouTube and Periscope going, we're good. So thank you so much, Mr. Clint.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, welcome to the broadcast live jam stream thing. The Sing, Pray, Love, and JesusDidIt.org broadcast. So we're just going to explain what it is. Yes, ma'am, thank you very much. Thank you for the super hearts on Periscope. So this is a I just got the message. You know, the dude, you're kind of loud, dude. So this is a broadcast and a live jam all in one. So we do a little bit of worship, we do a little bit of some other things. So we do a Bible reading, we do a devotional. And so we started off with one, all right, Clint, you're good. Already? Yeah, we're good. So we're good there, we're good there, we're good there. We're live on all over where we need to be right now, so that's good. And I'm recording, so we're good. All right, so, and if you're on the other broadcasts, check out the new, down below there, check out the new chat thing. Let me know how that looks to you guys. Is it easier to read? Can you actually read it on your devices? Because I had someone who said that it was a little difficult to read, so I adjusted it to make it much bigger letters. So, yes. So, it looks good from here. Alrighty, so, guys, thanks for joining. We're just going to get through this stuff that we got to get through. We're going to sing a song. I'm going to sing a song with this next person. The rest of the other broadcasts are getting their the opening scene. So, guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here, and we're going to get the red people there. Chris, you need to check out the new Elevation song called Rattle. It is so cool, and yeah, that chat is better. Sweet. Awesome. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and do that, and then we're going to pull up this person here, and we're going to sing a song. Alrighty, welcome. Thank you for joining in the broadcast. Let me get rid of the echo so that way it sounds decent. There we go. Alrighty, so thank you for joining into the broadcast here. My name is Jason Wallace. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a prayer warrior, an intercessor. I'm a Bible reader, a devoted husband and father. I am a child of God. I am a new creation in Christ. I'm a citizen of heaven. I am righteous. I'm holy. I am all the stuff that the Bible tells me that I am. And yeah, so thanks for all your shares, all of your likes, your invites, your follows, your tweets, your retweets. You guys are awesome with that, and I do appreciate that. Super hearts are, Periscope are very much appreciative. And so yeah, so I'm also a very proud member of the Jesus Did It family, as well as a host for Sing, Pray, Love on Smule. And absolutely love sharing God's word with all those who are coming into the broadcast and into the jams. It's something that I really honored. I'm honored to do this. Absolutely. So, a couple of the ministries I'm with is the JesusDidIt.org ministry, and so JesusDidIt.org is a broadcasting ministry, and we're on primarily on Periscope and Facebook, and we bring God's word from a non-denominational standpoint. Even though some of the broadcasters are a bit different in some of the theological stuff, our things that we really focus on primarily is Jesus Christ and sharing His love and letting people know who Jesus Christ really is, and you know how you know explain that and try to walk people through understanding that and bringing them closer to God, and hopefully leading people towards salvation. So our website is JesusDidIt.org, and you can join us on the Facebook group at facebook.com/JesusDidItTV. If you really want to know a lot of those I am statements, you know those I ams, right? So those I am a child of God. I'm a new creation in Christ. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Shalom. So, you know, all those things. Like I had someone in Facebook today, a friend, this person just unloaded their whole feelings about everything, you know, about how the world's not, you know, attacking them, and about how what people say, and about how relationships are broken and things that are going on. And I took a whole bunch of the I ams, and I just went, okay, now you're done with that. Now let's go look at the word of truth. Let's go read what God says you are, all right? So God says you are, boom. And I posted those in there, and she was so appreciative. She was like, you know, this is what I needed. And so this is the same thing you can do too, right? Print out. There's a thing on the website. It's got a big red arrow pointing down to a blue printout, and you can print that thing out, stick it up on your wall. You know, put it in places, you know, where people can see it. Like we got it in our kitchen, so anytime you walk in our kitchen, you're looking to see who you are, because that is, you know, the world's telling you you're not good enough. The world's telling you you're a failure. The world's telling you that you'll never love again. The world is telling you that your relationship is broken and it can't be repaired. The world is telling you that you're all kinds of things. And Joshua, then you got it. And that is really what the world is telling you. And right now it's even worse, because people's anxieties are higher. People's frustrations are there, right? I mean, goodness. I mean, how is it to like not be able to get toilet paper? You know, things like that. And for you know, just basic things is driving people crazy. So when we can hold on to the Word of God and let us know inside of ourselves, because I'll tell you what, this has not been easy these last few weeks. I'll tell you right now. And if I didn't have some really close friends who really are willing to listen to my garbage, frustrations, I shouldn't say garbage, but to be able to just listen and help, just be there. And the family, and it's, yeah, I don't think we'd be able to make it through it, but But putting our trust in God is ultimately what is going to be helping us through things. You know, it's that time when you're sitting there, when you're worried about going into the store. You know, you got to put a mask on. You're freaking out a little bit. You know, you're having a hard time with it. What do? Do we sit there and cry? Maybe. But how about we pray? Let's talk to God and say, God, you know what? I need to be calm in this situation. God, tell me what it is. Tell me what it is I need to be. And if you can just remember a few of these, right? Just remember telling yourself, I'm a child of God. I'm a new creation in Christ. I'm a citizen of heaven. Listen, I'm a citizen of heaven. That's like the best one yet. This place is not my home. Because you know what? It's broken. People are broken. Things are broken. And my citizenship is in a place that is the most beautiful place there is. I'll take it. Hey, how's it going, Liz? Thanks for joining. Is that Disney baby? Yeah. Thanks for joining on Periscope. And that's what it is. So, you know, just keep telling yourself that stuff. And then praying, right? Let's just pray. God, take this anxiety away. I don't need this right now. Please, God, help me through this. And just the pure fact of talking to Jesus about it, it's going to be helping you to be able to be relaxed, right? You know, put on some worship music. That's what I did when I went to the store earlier. Put some worship music in my ears, and I just went, you know. And somebody looked up at me, I waved hi to him and said hello. Because that's what you should be doing. Do that, please, please. Don't be sitting there with your head down, running through the store, going, I can't look or talk to nobody because I'm afraid, you know, I'm going to get sick. If you're wearing a mask, you're doing your things you should be doing. You should be all right. Keep calm and wash your hands. Exactly, Melanie. Squirrel. That's what happens. Get on the soapbox a little bit. Get preaching. Alrighty, so the next ministry we're in is the Sing, Pray, Love ministry. So singpraylove.net is the website, and this ministry is I don't even know if it's a ministry, but it's more or less a group of people who love singing together, who love sharing their lives with each other in a Line application called Line, in a chat room there, and just spending time singing songs and supporting each other. And it's been a really good group of people to be with. I've made lots of great friends, and yeah, it's just, you know, it's a good place. So if you're interested in that, if you're on the Smule app, you can search for hashtag #SingPrayLove. We got all kinds of OCs open. OCs, for all the rest of you people are who's not in the Smule land, means it's just an open call. It's like you can come and sing with me on a song. We also have live jams. So we have scheduled live jams Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every day of the week, yeah. With hopefully some more coming on the Saturday and Sunday as well. I've been hearing rumblings about days for people, so it's really cool to be able to come and worship God on an app and make some good friends at that. So check out the website, singpraylove.net. If you're interested in the group and you're on Smule, you can reach out to me through the Smule chat and let me know, and I will start the things rolling to start getting you into the group. So today is Bible reading is Psalm 136, and Psalm 136 is a really beautiful psalm, and you're gonna, if you're a person who listens to a lot of worship music, you're gonna listen to these words that I'm speaking. You're gonna go, man, it sounds an awful lot like a song. So, well, because it is a psalm and it is a song. So, all right. So, Psalm 136. Thanksgiving to God for his enduring mercy. O give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. O give thanks to the God of gods, for his mercy endures forever. O give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his mercy endures forever. To him who alone does great wonders, for his mercy endures forever. To him who by wisdom made the heavens, for his mercy endures forever. To him who laid out the earth above the waters, for his mercy endures forever. To him who made great lights, for his mercy endures forever. To the sun to rule by day, for his mercy endures forever. The moon and the stars to rule by night, for his mercy endures forever. To him who struck Egypt in their firstborn, for his mercy endures forever. And brought out of Israel from among them, from his mercy, for his mercy endures forever. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm, for his mercy endures forever. To him who divided the Red Sea in two, for his mercy endures forever. And made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his mercy endures forever. But overthrew Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea, for his mercy endures forever. To him who led his people through the wilderness, for his mercy endures forever. To him who struck down great kings, for his mercy endures forever. And slew famous kings, for his mercy endures forever. Sihon, the king of Amorites, for his mercy endures forever. And I never say this one right. It's like Og, king of Bashan, for his mercy endures forever. And gave their land as a heritage, for his mercy endures forever. A heritage to Israel, his servant, for his mercy endures forever. Who remembered us in our lowly state, for his mercy endures forever. And rescued us from our enemies, for his mercy endures forever. Who gives food to all the flesh, for his mercy endures forever. O give thanks to the God of heaven, for his mercy endures forever. Amen. That is a great well, that's not going to work. Oops. Click the wrong click. Alrighty, so that was our Bible reading. And now our devotional for today. Well, that's interesting. Let me get this mule account up over here. Hopefully that one's good. Alrighty. Oh, great. We've made an update. Thanks. Alrighty, so for today's devotional, now I'm an Our Daily Bread ambassador. So these little books, you might see them at your church. If you are in the Buffalo, Western New York area and you would like a copy after COVID, or I can even I can send one to you, or you can go on their website, odb.org, and they can send you a copy. There's also a daily devotional on there. There's you can get it distributed to you in a varied number of ways. So you can either get it in paper form, or you can get it in an app or email, or oh my goodness, they have so many different things like Facebook Messenger. They actually have their own app, so it's definitely a good thing to get to is to get a copy of this, so that way you can follow along. And also on the other days that I don't broadcast, you can keep up with these really good little devotionals that get you into God's Word, and it's amazing. Hey Jenna. So for today's Our Daily Bread, and they have given me permission to read this, by the way, so I just want to make sure I say that. Today's Our Daily Bread is titled Healing Words. This is written by Kristen Holmberg. A recent study has shown that encouraging words from a healthcare provider, can help patients recuperate faster from their ailments. A simple experiment exposed volunteer study participants to a skin allergen to make them itch, and then compared the reactions between those who received assurance from their physician and those who didn't. Patients who received encouragement from their doctors had less discomfort and itching than their counterparts. The writer of Proverbs knew how important encouraging words are. Gracious words bring healing to the bones, he wrote in Proverbs 16:24. A positive effect of words isn't limited to our health. When we heed the wisdom of instruction, we're also more likely to prosper in our efforts. So too, encouragement buoys us from the challenges we face now, and may encounter in the future. We may not yet fully understand why or even how much wisdom and encouragement brings strength and healing to our daily lives. Yet, the cheers and guidance of our parents, coaches, and colleagues seem to help us endure difficulty and steer us towards success. Similarly, the Bible brings us encouragement when we face trials, equipping us to bear up under even the most unthinkable circumstances. Help us, God, to be strengthened by your wisdom, and to, in turn, offer the healing and hope of gracious words to those you have placed in our lives. Amen. So who has spoken gracious words into your life? Can you name some person? Can you name one person? Hey, Rebecca, thanks for joining. One person in your life has spoken gracious words. I have a few of them. Yep. So why is it vital for you to share words of encouragement with others? Because generally, I can just say generally, I want to help other people. Because when people aren't feeling good, I don't like it when they don't feel good, because then it brings me down too. And so then it's like a vicious little circle. We were watching the movie the other night, the one with the smoke jumpers, the guys that it was like the two kids, they were in the burning cabin or whatever, was it John Leguizamo, I think it is. He said he had the baby there, and he's like, no, don't cry, because I'm gonna cry too, And it was so funny because I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, shoot, that's me. I see somebody else upset, it gets me upset, And so pastors and friends, yeah, iron sharpens iron for sure. I've got a couple people in my life that really help, and I'm very thankful that God has put them in my path, because without them, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to do stuff. So, for sure. So today, prayer says, Dear Father, thank you for your words of healing and hope. Amen. We lift each other's up. That's right. Absolutely. Hey, Wes, thanks for joining. So that's today's Our Daily Bread. It was brought to you by Proverbs chapter 16, verses 20 through 24. And the key verse for today is Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Thus, if you are on the broadcast, you'll see the honeycomb above me. I really got to get my green screen back. It's I gotta actually order one, because my dollar store and green screen isn't working so great. So guys, if you have any prayer requests or praise reports, Sue says she has several friends who are encouraging her, and it's been like a fresh life breath breathed into your soul. Exactly. Without people in your lives, I can say that I've got quite a few close friends, and And I also got my Jesus Did It team, and I got that Sing, Pray, Love team. I got lots of people who help encourage and help keep me lifted up in times when I just don't feel good, you know? And it's okay to not feel good. It's okay to not feel like everything's in control, because it isn't sometimes. And so we just gotta go to God with it if we need to, right? We need to bring all that stuff to him. He's much more capable of handling our problems than we are. And you've been praying and thinking about going to school to be a pastor. Yeah, me too. It's been on my heart for a while. It's just, yeah, actually executing it is going to be the thing. So who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? So finding the worship is a kind of like an avenue that I'm going into that I'm really finding a lot more. I don't want to say more, but I'm finding a lot of joy in, because I'm more or less an evangelizer is more what I do. So pastoring, it takes some definite you got to be built for it, is what it is. So and I don't know if I am or not, but I know that I can worship, and I know that I can help lead people to the cross. So that's where I'm at. So if anybody has any prayer requests, any praise reports, anything like that, we would love to pray with you. Lift up those requests to God, and just be able to let's get rid of that. Let's give it to him. Let's give it to God. All right, I'm just getting everything finished setting up over here. So we don't have any prayer requests. That's okay, because we're going to pray for some things, all right? So let's go ahead. Let's bow our head, and we're going to pray. Father God, we just thank you so much for this time tonight to be able to get into this broadcast, God, to be able to spend time and knowing who you are and getting into your word. God, I thank you so much for your people who come here that just want to spend time and listen to your word and be able to sing praises to you, and God, I just thank you for every single one of my friends here. God, I don't quite know what I would do without them here on this earth. I know I'm relying on you for a lot, God, but it's also really, really good feeling to have great friends to be able to lift up and to encourage and to use those healing words, those kind words, those gracious words to help guide each other towards comfort and knowing more about you. And God, I just thank you for everything that you've done for us on the cross. God, I ask for guidance and wisdom for the people who are running our country, God, for our president and for the vice president and all these people that are making decisions to help us be able to be safe and healthy, God. God, continue to give them the guidance. Continue to give them the direction that you want this to go. God, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to use this time to help draw closer to you. God, I know it's difficult for some people who are just in a panic and worried and scared. God, your word says that we don't need to be worried and scared, and I just thank you for that. Thank you for that, to be able to lean on your words, God. Even though sometimes it is overwhelming. Sometimes we as believers do get worried and scared. But we know that ultimately we can trust in your word and what you say. God, we just thank you so much for everything that you do for us. In Jesus' mighty and powerful and amazing name, we pray. Amen. Somebody writes, evangelism is definitely one of your spiritual gifts. Prayer for cervical cancer for your friend. Oh, goodness, yes. Father God, we lift up Jesse's friend, God, who has cervical cancer. God, we just ask for healing in that person's body. God, we just ask for that healing, for that cancer to be gone in Jesus' mighty and powerful name. God, allow the doctors to make smart decisions, to be able to help them be able to repair or work on that and help heal that person, God. God, we just thank you for the doctors who are going to use the wisdom that you give them, and God, just let their hands be your hands in making the decisions and about surgeries and things like that. God, we just thank you so much for that person, God, and we ask that you bring healing in their life. In Jesus' mighty and powerful and amazing name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Amen. Did I miss any? I don't think I did. All right. You said Joshua was first. All right. So guys, we're going to get into our worship time right now. It's a time to worship. So if you're on any other apps and you want to join and sing, sing and listen, you don't got to be great. You don't got to be thinking, everybody's voice is beauty to God's ears. So don't think you got a bad voice. Don't think that you can't sing. You know what? You come on here and we sing praises to God, and that's what it's about. So I'm going to switch the screens right now, so now my lips might not match. Just let you know, on the other apps, the lips might not match the screen, but this is where we're at. So technology is being stretched to the max right now. So I believe it is Joshua first. So we're going to pull up Joshua. Alrighty, cool. Death was arrested. Oh my goodness, this poor guy in this, he's got it dropped again. No, looks like we're getting. Okay. Hold on, we got to play a little cleanup on Twitch because children must play. Alrighty. Joshua. Hold on, I gotta pull up Twitch and go block a couple people. Boy, Twitch is really bad tonight. There you go. And they'll be gone. Band. Bye bye. See you later. Hold on, I got to get rid of some people who are not being very nice. There we go. It still says waiting for this guy. Oh man, something's up with this phone. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, if you guys want to type, it'd be really, really nice. This will get rid of the junk out of the chat stream. Thank you. And yep. I'm sorry. Had to ban some people. Because, that's how it works. Alright, I'm not sure why his thing's not working. Joshua. Let's try it one more time, buddy. Third time's a charm. It's gotta work. No junk showing up on your end. Yeah, no, it's not on this app. It's on the Twitch app. There's this is a multi-stream, so I got a couple different things going on, and like I'm piping the audio and stuff into the stream. Clint's like, wow. What is Twitch? Twitch is a streaming platform that is was originally designed for gamers. So like all the gamers, you know, yeah, this is a gaming platform. And so the gamers get on there, and then but there's yeah, there's some people on there that like to cause, you know, frustration for people. So yes, but I think if we're close to, we're at 110, so it's not that many. But I can, if you really don't want to be on another site, we can block that from being on that screen. So that's one thing I will ask you. All right. Oh, maybe we got it. Maybe it's worked. Yo. I was like, come on, man. This guy's stuff's gotta work, because like he can sing.
When Android fails,
yes.
iPhone.
Oh, you're on the iPhone now. Switch it up. All right. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's Joy, right? Yeah. So what song you want to sing?
I was wanting to do one I'm supposed to sing tomorrow, actually. It's called Yes, I Will.
Oh, yeah. We can do that one for sure. I'm going to pull it up. I'll grab it. Yes, I will. Actually, is that one's in my bookmarks, I think. Yes, it is. Here we go.
You Lift Me Up was also popping in my head whenever you was talking.
Oh, we were talking. So what you want, one or two?
I'll take two.
Okay. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now.
In the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out.
Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh,
yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy and all my days. Yes, I will. I count on one thing, the same God that's never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now.
no waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. He's working all things out.
Oh yes,
I will. Oh, come on. Oh man. This mule has been so troublesome today. Oh, it's been hard. Can you say hi to my friend? No, I can't. Thank you. But you know what can happen? You're gonna get blocked because I'm not gonna deal with that. You are being abusive. Yeah, you're being abusive. Bye bye. All That person's gone. He'll have to come on home back around again. We'll sing this song. I'm gonna grab Sue first. Hey, YG. Yes, we get rid of. And welcome from Lagos, Nigeria. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm in the Western New York area near Buffalo.
Hello.
Hello. Wait, I gotta do the same thing. Hold on. Wait,
All right, I gotta fix
There we go.
volumes.
I have no idea what that does, but
Well, your lights are so bright, it doesn't do much.
what it is. Okay. Can't fix this.
Oh, hush. Okay, so what was the song I put in? Death was arrested.
Great song. Death was arrested.
Hey, JP.
North Point Inside Out. What an A. Wow, that's really. Whew. Would you like? I know I'm not gonna bother saying. Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope and no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. Death was arrested and my life began.
Ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began.
Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you.
It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you.
Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. Shame has been ransomed, he faithfully bore.
He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began.
Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. A savior
A
displayed.
savior displayed on a criminal's cross.
Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost.
Then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began.
Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down
I guess it was a hot mess, but you can.
It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad.
It was
Thank
pretty
you.
good, actually.
That was a hot mess.
That wasn't too
All right.
More practice. That's it. See, everybody says it sounds great. Look at awesome.
They're just
great.
being nice.
No, they ain't. Because they are. It's the truth. All right. Embracing joy today.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
How are you? How are you?
I'm alive and well.
That's a
And
good thing to be.
That's what's a very important thing to be right now.
Exactly right. I know. Staying safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Pretty much it.
So
what'd
let's
you like to
see. I'm looking at all of our songs here.
Pretty much anywhere.
There's so many. I mean, let's see. Goodness. Oh man. Sorry, I don't have something
It's fine.
pulled up.
It's fine.
I like, let's see, goodness,
Hey,
Praise You in
Becky,
the
thanks for
Storm,
joining.
Oceans. I love Oceans.
You want to do oceans?
Yeah, do you want me to pull it up?
Sure.
Okay. Which part do you want? Does it matter?
It really doesn't matter.
All right, here we go.
Really do.
I'll try to do harmony when I can, since I love harmony.
I'm just learning harmony, so.
You call me out upon the water, the great unknown, where feet may fail.
And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand.
I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are
Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide.
Where feet may fail, surrounds me. You've never failed, and you won't. So
I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours. You are
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon wherever you would call me.
Take me deeper than my feet
Keep my eyes above the waves.
My soul will rest in your embrace.
I am,
And you are mine. Oh.
Good song.
it is a great song. Isn't it?
You.
Mind if I save that?
Thank you for letting me jump on here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Trying to figure out how to drop this. Oh,
Just press the little mic. And
yeah, no, I've done this so many times. I just
That's okay.
forgot. Thank you.
it's all good. Thank you. Oh, all right. So did anybody get smealed? Are we like in the right order? Is everybody good? So it should be Jesse, Sarah, Sue, Joshua, Clint. I think you got smealed. I know, and I saw that Joshua got smealed too. You were next. I thought you were up there too, Clint. Thanks for all the support on Periscope, and you guys are awesome. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, we're gonna pray. Father God, we just lift up our sister Sarah tonight. God, we ask for healing in her body, for the dizziness and the ringing in her left ear, and God, for the gums and the teeth issues. God, we just ask that you make a way for that to be repaired and healed. God, we ask for healing for the acid reflux and the digestive issues. In Jesus' mighty and powerful name we pray. Amen. Amen. Healing, yep. I swear, my goodness, I'm going to have to get a new cable. Amen. Thank you, Joy. What you thinking there, Mr. Clint?
Oh, you don't know what I know I'm thinking. No.
Well, yeah, no.
No.
All right, maybe
No,
that
I'm
was a
just
bad question.
No. I'm good.
I have a feeling I'm going to be getting smealed pretty soon.
Yes, you were getting a little staggered last song.
You know, hold it for a second, and let me click the other mic on. That way they can hear me, and I'll be right back. I'm going to force myself to smeel.
All right. Okay, guys. So on the broadcast, this is what happens sometimes. These broadcasts, or this application gets a little weird sometimes. It's just, I mean, if you think about what is really happening here is an amazing thing that we're actually able to sing with people around the world, you know, and you know, some people next door, but all through the internet. And so sometimes there's some challenges with that. So just give us a minute for this to, for me to reconnect back in. So we call it smealing because it kicks you off. And you can kind of tell when it's going to about to happen because the screen gets a little edgy and stuff like that. Yep. Good night, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining. And as always, I'm praying for you, my sister, for sure. All right. I think I'm back in the jam. There we go.
It's the lights.
It's the lights. All right, he's going to bring me on here in a second. And then the audio will be there. Yeah, just pick me up. No, he can't just pick me up. I got to go on that side, actually. All right, so as we're waiting for the application to load, I think I don't know what's going on. I think he's frozen. I think he's frozen too. Oh. I've been disconnected. How do you like that? Hold on.
Causing some
I'll be back.
challenges.
The app is definitely having some issues tonight.
Server's crazy.
So-
Oh, there he goes again.
The servers are acting crazy tonight. Pass it. Try that.
Well,
There we go.
All right, cool.
And
Can you drop and I'll pick you back up again? It's just because the audio connection Otherwise, I won't be able to, yeah.
Right.
Like when I
So no,
play.
you don't like being on that side.
Well, it's not that.
It's, I'll explain. So, you have to be on that side. Uh-oh. I'm lost. Ah, the app. The app, I tell you. Now we go for Smeal Go Round. Let's see. Round and round we go. Whoever gets it. No one knows. The challenges of an app. Remember when we were having those issues with the with Periscope and all that stuff, all those issues we had? And there we go. Yes, thank you, Miss Sue.
All right, so it should be, okay, now we're back. So get rid of the double mic. There we go. Yeah, remember with Periscope, we had so many problems with Periscope, like similar thing, like it would like freeze people and it would like, you would not get like, it would like, it would just keep kicking, like you trying to broadcast, it wouldn't work. Now we got cleaned. Thank you. I just want to make a very good disclaimer here. I don't want a disclaimer, just a little praise for my friend Sue here. She's a really good admin and helps gratefully in this live jam for sure. So praise to our friend.
All right, let's see if this stays this time.
It looks good now.
Yes, and
And
you're not
we have the proper amount of sheen, so we're good too.
sheen.
Sheen, you know. The head sheen. I don't call it shine, it's not shine, it's like, yeah. Remember when Periscope used to transport you to another, yeah, I remember that. You can still do it, Melanie. If you press on the actual app, you press on it, it'll pop up and ask you, do you want to transport? And it'll take you to a random broadcast somewhere in the world.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. All right.
You never know what you're going to get, though.
It's like a box of chocolates.
It's like a box of chocolates. Yes, it is.
All right, your scripture verse, remind me of this song again.
Verse should be good now. Oh, this is good. This is scripture verse.
Exactly. I kept on thought of it exactly as soon as you started reading it. It's like a boy Tomlin.
Yep,
He didn't write it, but he sang it.
that's right.
Give thanks to the Lord, our God and King. His love endures forever. For he is good, he is above all things. His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise.
With a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, His love endures forever. For life is been reborn, His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise,
Sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever
and ever.
From the rising to the setting sun, His love endures forever.
Grace, God, carry on. His love endures forever.
Sing praise. forever. His love endures forever.
Love endures forever. His love endures forever.
Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever.
Forever God is faithful. Forever God is strong. Forever God is with us. Forever, forever.
Forever you are faithful, forever you are strong, forever you are with us, forever. Forever you are faithful, forever you are strong, forever you are with us, forever. Oh, forever, forever and ever. Yes, written after that scripture verse.
Exactly. I was waiting for somebody
Yeah.
to come up with it.
Well, you know me, Chris Tomlin.
I know that.
of
I
course.
was sitting there. I was like, yep, I know who's
Yep.
gonna get it.
And
I
Nikki,
know
of
it's-
course, yes. Michael W. Smith did it too. I'm wearing my Michael W. Smith worship shirt today. Actually, it's on the back. It says "Created for Worship."
Nice.
It was his tour back in 2002. So when he started doing the worship music. So
So 2002.
yeah, I know. Dates myself.
Well, no, because I was not even close to being saved.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 2012? Is that what you said? Or?
2014. Yeah.
Oh, 14. Okay, that's right.
2014.
Yep. So,
All right.
all right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Come back around.
Yes, sir. Please. All right. So the order is good now. I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah. Josh, we're gonna get through a song. Thank you.
Hello.
There he is. That's much better connection now.
I'm on the Android too. I've been switching around, but
Just gotta find the right spot. Don't move. Right?
I got the game mode on.
Oh, there you go.
Hopefully, it's not Ultra HD or whatever that is anymore. So do you know "Do It Again" by Elevation Worship, or do you want to
Yes.
do what we was doing before?
We can. Let's do it again. I haven't done that in a while. Love that song. All right, do it again. This song I actually learned quite a bit of the words. Because we had I love the song anyways, but then I had we were doing a worship practice and the guy that normally sings the song wasn't there. So I actually got to sing it. It was kind of cool.
I love this song.
You're very scared of the coronavirus? Don't be afraid. No reason to be afraid. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet.
Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet.
Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Oh,
Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Oh,
your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. You move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
you made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
You move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Seen you move, do it again. The mountain, oh, oh, you move mountains.
Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness.
I'm still in your
You have never failed me yet, and I never will forget.
Awesome.
I go a little sideways in the middle of it sometimes, but that's all right. That's what it's called, worship.
Yeah, anything works, you know.
That's right, buddy. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Back around again. What's that? Is it? Oh,
Do I end the duet?
you can, yeah, you just drop. That's fine. Yep. All right, great is your faithfulness. Exactly. All right, so we're going to lift up prayer for my friend Pitbull Beermaster on Periscope. Father God, we lift up his niece tonight, God, who has a lipoma. God, we ask for that mass to be diminished to nothing. God, let it shrivel up and be gone. God, and if it can't be, allow the doctors to be able to take care of that, or remove it and make sure it's gone completely out of that niece. So God, we lift her up tonight. God, you ask for healing upon her in Jesus' mighty and powerful and amazing name. In Jesus' name, amen. Topia, 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 Topia.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to come check on my dogs for a second. They were freaking out.
Dogs is what they do.
No, it was weird barking, not normal.
Somebody around.
I don't think so. Not angry barking. Anyway. All right, so which one do you want to do? I am not alone or different? I mean, ultimately, we're going to get to both, so whichever one you want to do now.
Let's do it. I am not alone.
Load it up.
Yes. Will do.
Or did you want me to?
I got it.
Okay.
I am already there. My microphone is really acting badly. I gotta order a cable. I know I said this 3 days in a row.
Me too.
You want two?
I don't care.
1, 2, no, do my. Hey, Teresa. When I walk through deep waters, I know that you will be with me.
When I'm standing in the fire, I will not be overcome.
Through the valley of the shadows,
I will not fear.
I am not alone.
I am not alone.
You will go before me. You will never leave me.
I am not alone.
I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me.
In the midst of deep sorrow, I see a light is breaking through.
You're my strength, you're my defender.
You're my refuge in the storm.
Through these trials, always been faithful.
You bring healing to my soul. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone.
I am not alone.
You will go before me. You will never leave me.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
And my mom's tying my shoe.
What's that?
Yeah, I got new shoes.
New shoes? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Just
Awesome.
Skechers.
Please don't show me.
I'm not showing you.
What song are we singing?
You know Michael W. Smith by any chance?
I know lots of Michael W. Smith.
Michael W. Smith.
Which one?
What songs do you know by him?
Yeah, just hold on. Let me go pull it up. If I could spell it right, would be good. So, above all, yeah, I know that one. Let's see. Open the eyes of my heart. What else is there? Surrounded, fight my battles. Draw me close to you.
Mom,
Alright. My bad.
you interrupted.
Above all.
Oh yeah, I know that song.
You know above all?
Yeah, we sang that at communion. We watched it on TV Easter morning.
That's cool. Our church, that's what I'm screaming in our church.
Yeah, we watched it on TV.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just closing the door.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I was singing here, it fell. Massive shout out to Michael W. Smith.
That's
I
right.
miss him.
Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man, you were here before the world began.
Above all kingdoms, above all fruits, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, what there's no measure but to bear.
Here goes.
Crucified, laid behind the stone, He lived to die, rejected and alone, like a rose, trampled on the ground. You took the fall in front of me. This is actually a true story.
Yeah.
Happened during Easter, you know?
Above all powers, above all things,
Above all nature and all created things.
above all wisdom in all the ways of man. You were here before the world began.
Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known. Above all
wealth
and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure what you're worth. Crucified, laid behind the stone,
you lived to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled on the ground. You took the fall and thought of me above.
crucified, laid behind the stone, you lived to die, rejected and alone, like a rose, trampled on the ground. You took the fall,
Thought of me above all.
like a rose, trampled on the ground.
You took the fall.
In front of me,
Above
above all. I have the talent of harmonizing.
That's good.
Jesus gave me that. Like, my mom doesn't even know how to harmonize. Yes, Farah, exactly.
Shall I
What
say
this song is, it's literally about the guy, Jesus, getting out of the tomb
Yeah.
or the cave or
The tomb,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's where Jesus rose from the dead. If some of you don't know
Yeah.
and doesn't know the story, he had the Last Supper, and there was a musical that played on TV. It was called The Light, and it was about Easter, and they told the whole story about Jesus.
That's cool.
And so what happened is they had the Last Supper where they shared the bread and the cup. I did that like 2 days ago with my family. My dad, my mom. First of all, they began with worship. And they sang that song. And then I realized I know that song because I listen to Michael W. Smith. He's my idol, and I love his voice. And he just he inspires me to praise God. And it's true because sometimes you just gotta talk to him, even though I'm getting worried about this coronavirus and stuff. I mean, yeah. Yes, I know. I am a good singer. I'm like 16 years old, as you would have known. And I'm still scared of this coronavirus thing. I know I have my mask. I've been washing my hands. But most of all, I'm kind of scared of the coronavirus.
So what you can do is, you can pray, right? You can always pray. And so you just you lift that concern, right? I'll be honest with you. You know what happened to me today? I had to go to the supermarket because I had to get some food for dinner. And so I had my mask on, and I was in my car, and I was getting ready to go into the store, and I literally had it freaked out. I literally freaked out. I was like, couldn't move, nothing. And so what I had to do was I just sat there and I focused and I breathed, and I said, God, help me through this. God, get me through this, to walk through this store, to not have a fear of something we can't see. So God, help me through this. And I just kept saying that through over and over and over again. And finally, it broke from me, and I was able to go and go to the store and get the stuff I needed. And you know what? Sometimes just putting our trust in Him is really important, because that helps take all that yucky away, right? Because yeah, so it's good. And you are a very special young lady, and I thank you so much for singing with me. You're awesome.
I know. I mean, it's fun to sing with new people, even though Linkin Park has been my inspiration.
That's all right. Linkin Park
and
was my inspiration
I always
too.
pray sometimes, but I also forget to like pray to God before I go to bed.
Yeah,
I always forget it.
You know what I do? I'll just sit there. I just start in the morning, and I say, thank you, God. And then I just remember to say, thank you, God. If you just do that, you'll always be in tune.
Like before I go to bed, I turn on like piano versions of Christian songs.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would lie in bed and think of the words sometimes.
That's awesome.
Because sometimes I wouldn't forget the lyrics. Because like if Shout to the Lord starts playing, I'd be like,
You're going to start singing the words, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would start mumbling the lyrics sometimes.
That's awesome.
Because I would sometimes forget the lyrics. Because I've been to kids' church for about like a long time.
That's good.
And that's what started my singing.
Awesome.
And car singing too.
Awesome.
It was like a thing to me.
That's awesome.
It was one of my favorite things when I was like a kid.
That's great.
And I still do it.
You keep doing it.
It's really fun.
You keep doing it. All right, we want
Yes,
to...
all right, I will. I love
right.
you, God!
Thank you. Thank you. She is an awesome young lady. Just want to say, hey, Pastor Rick, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for the super hearts. I do very much appreciate those. Yeah, if you're on Periscope and you're not following Pastor Rick Costa, you want to make sure you do that. He's one awesome dude. Let's see. Invite duet partner. All right, Sarah. Hey, Ethan, thanks for joining on YouTube. $2.10. Oh, what, it did not click or something? How about now? There we go.
Hello.
Well, welcome back again.
Let's try this again.
Yeah.
So I was thinking either goodness of God or redeemed.
You pick. I'm good with either. You can't make a decision, can you?
No, I can't. I'm going to turn myself down. I sound.
All right. Let me find goodness of God, because there is a special version that works for me. Maybe it'll be good for you, hopefully.
If not, we'll wing it.
I want to sing this or next year with you guys. Come on, man. Come over to the app. Smule. Just download it. You'll be good to go. Set yourself up for that one. I don't know what the rest of that conversation was about, but you want one or two?
I'll do one.
Okie dokie.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, 'cause I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. I have loved in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down and surrendered now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me.
My life you have
You have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing. All my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Yes, ma'am. Worship is what we do. It's what we're made for. We're made to worship Him.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Even we are given all the time to show God what we can do. We can show His good and His eternity. Yep. All right, we're still in order. Everybody's good. Glint, glint, glint. My brother from another mother.
Sang with my sister from a different mister.
There you go.
Oh, let's see. I like that song. It's funny because I posted that song that I did with I don't know how you say her name. Majirik?
Maraika?
Yeah, that's it.
Maraika.
From
so it's like,
the
so you ready?
Netherlands.
So it's like, how did I explain
Baraka?
it before? It's like Mary, so it's like Mary JK. So
Yeah.
it's a Maraika.
Marika. Okay.
Maraika.
Anyways, I posted that on my Facebook page the other day. A lot of people don't know that I do this, and it's kind of stepping out of my comfort zone and sharing that I sing on here, and started getting requests.
That's awesome.
My nephew, he actually asked me if I would do Goodness of Garden. So Sarah actually did an OC, so perhaps I will do a joint with her.
Or she did
later
OC,
on.
I'll have to do a joint.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
anyways, so I did get some very good positive feedback on that. So I was a little nervous to, step out of that comfort zone there. So
I'll tell you
anyways.
what, the first time that I did Facebook Live broadcast, and I mean, not very many people come because it's so late, but like you get people come on there, they're like, oh, I didn't know you did this. I'm like, yep, something I do. Thank you for coming live on here. Listen, this is I have to. Yeah. You couldn't do it? You could do it. Someone's like, I couldn't do it. Thank you so much for the super hearts. Let's let you know, anybody, super hearts on Periscope, after a certain amount of plays and replays on the broadcast allows, they send me some money from that.
Oh, wow.
So if I get to, I'm a super broadcaster, but I have to get a certain amount of people. It's like 50 live viewers and 75 replay viewers. So
That's great.
The hard part is the 75 replays. Everybody loves watching live. They hate watching replays. So that's all
Did
right.
I see a couple weeks ago you did like an OC, or you did something, an old Darlene Check song, Power of Your Love, I think?
I don't know who the people are. I know the song. Yeah, I know that song. I didn't know who were in.
Hold me close, let your arms surround me.
Oh, that's like one of our church songs. We do that. That's on a rotation.
Stay with me, hear you by my side. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do that one?
Yeah. I'll bring it up here.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely do that one in church. That's on the rotation.
Yeah, back in the day, Hillsong, Darlene Check was one of the
Amen.
big group lead singers of that.
I had no idea, but
Yeah, I know. That was before Jason, right?
that's before the new Jason.
Yeah. Lord, I come to you. Let my heart be changed, renewed, flowing from the grace that I found in you.
And Lord, I've come to know the weakness I see in me will be stripped away by the power of your love.
Hold me close, let your love surround me. Bring me near, draw me to your side. I will soar with you. Your spirit leads me on in the power of your love. Lord, unveil my eyes, let me see you face to face, the knowledge of your love as you live in me.
Lord, renew my mind as your will unfolds in my life, in living every day, by the power of your love.
Hold me close, let your love surround me. Bring me near, draw me to your side. And as I wait, I'll rise up like an eagle, and I will soar with you. Your spirit leads me on in the power of your love.
Now hold me close, let your love surround me. Drawing me near, draw me to your side. And as I wait, I'll rise up like an eagle,
And I will soar with you. Your spirit leads me on by the power of your love. And I will soar with you. Your spirit leads me on in the power of your love. And I will soar with you. Your spirit leads me on in the power of your love. Yeah, that was
Clint's
one of the songs
bringing
from-
them tonight, man.
with when I first started in praise and worship. That was the early 2000s, and she was still doing a lot of stuff with them. So she did that, and I think some other ones, but I'll think of them. Maybe bring them up to you here next time. So,
Okay.
so
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Wow, there's a big wait list. Wow, wow, wow.
Hello again.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
I was wondering if you wanted to pick this one. Like, I'm between a lot of songs right now. I could just name them off or something. Like Living Hope by Phil Wickham. You know that one?
Yes, I do.
You want to do that one?
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
want to do that one. That sounds like a good idea. See, I'm pretty easy. I know a bunch of songs. It's because since 2014, it's all I've listened to, period. Doesn't matter to me, whichever. the chasm that lie between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven, spoke your name into the night. And through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Oh, Jesus, yours is the victory. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. And hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. God, you are my living hope.
Thank you. All right.
Good worship tonight.
That's good worship tonight for sure. All right. Thank you. Oops. Come back here. All right. I'm going to say good. Do you guys here on Smeal stay right here? Don't go anywhere. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to somebody else. I'm talking to the other broadcast. All right. So for Periscope and YouTube and Facebook and all you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for worshiping with us. Thank you for getting into the Word. Thank you just for being here, and appreciate all of your support, your hearts, your super hearts, your likes, your all the stuff that you guys do. You're awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you. This next song, I'm going to just close out those other broadcasts. So thank you so much. This is the best one? I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Good evening.
Good evening. I finally catch you on here.
That's good.
Weather has been not very kind to my lungs and stuff, so venturing out on the porch is as much as I've ventured, but pollen has not been my friend.
No, pollen's not my friend.
Especially with my lung disease.
Yeah. What song?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was asking you what
Well, I
song.
was just going to say, the version I want to sing is the one done by the Backstreet Boys, because the Hillsong, unless you want me to do total harmony, I can't do any of the melody because it's too high for me.
So which song is it?
So I'm sorry, I thought I said, crap.
I forgot to look at
You
it.
Are My King, Amazing Love.
Oh, yeah. You Are My King. Yeah, Newsboys version.
Yeah, what did I say,
You said
Backstreet
Backstreet
Boys?
Boys, yeah. I'm like,
Well,
I don't do Backstreet
some
Boys.
kind of boys.
The Newsboys, yeah.
Yeah.
A little lower.
Right.
You want one or two?
Which do you prefer? It doesn't matter.
Does not matter to me.
I'll go ahead and do part one.
Okay. There we go.
I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted. You were condemned. I'm alive and well. Your spirit lives within me because you died and rose again.
I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted. You were condemned. I'm alive and well. Spirit is within me. You died and rose again. Amazing love, how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? Amazing love, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you in all I do. I honor you.
I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted. You were condemned.
I'm alive and well. Your spirit is within me because you died and rose again. Amazing love, how can it be
that you, my King, should die for me?
Amazing love, I know it's true.
You are my King. You are my King. Jesus, you are my King. You are my King. Amazing love.
How can it be that you, my King, would die for me?
Amazing love.
Amazing love, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you.
Amazing love.
Amazing love, how can it be that you, my King, would die for me?
Amazing love.
Amazing love, I know it's true. All I do, and all I honor you. In all I do, I honor you. All I do.
Let me honor you. Have you ever noticed every time we get to sing a song, I know on my end it does, it's either I'm ahead of you, music, like the music, I can see the music lagging on your side.
Yeah.
And so I try to look real close, but it's like, is the devil just trying to just be a jerk? You know, that's